tonight's meeting, bringing us enlightenment, guidance, and protection for a future that is more laborious, a future in which we connect with ourselves, connect with one another in a more elevated way. This way, we ask that the message not only stays here in this room, but also gets to be taken to our family members, our friends who cannot be here with us today. This way, guide us now and ever, and so be it. So today we have here our dear Wendell Almeida. Welcome, Wendell, and thanks for being here with us. Um, you thought that by leaving the state of Maryland that you would be like, oh, goodbye, no, no more work. No, we're gonna give you work, and we're glad that we knew. I'm joking. We know that you would be doing this with us. You would continue to work, and the celebration of work, right? That is to share our knowledge, this beautiful information that is Spiritism for all of us. And today, Wendell will be speaking with us about living together to evolve the law of society in the light of Spiritism. And it is, as I was saying, a beautiful part of the Spirit's book, the third part of the Spirit's book, when we study the natural laws, right, Wendell? And in out of the laws, this is one of them that is extremely important to all of us, right? To live in society, to grow with one another, with the hardships or not, to certainly grow with one another. So no more for with. I don't want to say too much because we can go on and on and on here. But I thank you again for being here with us and sharing this moment with us. And I'll let you go ahead and speak, and we'll have our moments where we will have the moment at the end. We'll have questions and answers for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you all for having me. Good afternoon. All of you who are right now at SSB, where I wish to be right now, and all of you who are watching from home, it's a pleasure to be here again. And today, the topic we chose to talk about, to discuss a little bit, is living together to evolve. A reflection on the law of society as revealed in the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, highlighting how human coexistence is not only necessary but essential to our spiritual growth. It's interesting, Leo was talking about the natural laws. When I first studied the natural laws, I could never imagine that society would be one of these laws, considering the moral laws, which we'll be discussing during this meeting. Well, for this talk, as a research source, I use the Gospel According to Spiritism, the Spirit's book, and the books After Death by Leon Denis, the book in Portuguese, Sexo e Evolução, which, if it had been translated to English, should have been Sex and Evolution by Walter Barcelos, O Martírio dos Suicidas, The Martyrdom of the Suicides by Almerindo Castro, Jesus in the Home by Chico Xavier and the Spirit of Neo Lúcio, and Family and Constellation by Divaldo Franco and the Spirit of Joana de Angelis. Well, law of society, a divine or natural law. Before we delve in this topic, let's have a quick recap about what is a moral or a natural law, especially for those who may be having their first contact with Spiritism right now, eventually. So we are going to find the concept of moral law in the question 614 of the Spirit's book, where Kardec asked, what is meant to be, what is meant by natural law? And the Spirits answered, natural law is the law of God. It's the only law that is truly necessary for human beings to be happy. It shows them what they should or should not do, and they only suffer misfortune when they depart from it. So, according to this, answer, a natural law is the law of God. And every time we act in accordance to this law, to the law of God, we succeed in finding happiness. On the other hand, we step away from the chance to be happy when we act in disagreement with the law of God. And then Kardec asked the following question, the question 621. Where is God's law written? Is there a code we should open to read it? Is there a constitution? Is it written in any book, in the Bible, for instance? And then the answer was the God's law is written in the conscience. So we have to dive deep in our own conscience to access the law of God, which is good on one hand because we don't need to go to law school to learn about the law of God. We don't need anyone to teach us about the law of God. What we need is time and effort to develop the ability to identify, to recognize the law of God written in our own consciousness. Okay, so as the question says that we need to live and act according to the law of God, what is necessary for us to act according to this law? What are the resources that we can use to help us acting according to the law of God? I thought of two really important resources that we could use to help us to be able to act according to this law. The first one is knowing and comprehending this law. This is basic, right? Because we need to know to understand something in order to follow this prescription. And this reminded me of this passage of the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 37, when Jesus said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind." So we need to love our God with all our heart, our soul, and our mind. Three ingredients. Let's discuss a little bit about each one of these. Our heart is our feelings, is our emotions, is how we feel the existence of God. Our soul is our existence while spirit. We need to comprehend God beyond our material existence, considering everything that we have lived before this actual existence. And by our mind, we must considering as our intellectual, right? So our love for God may may go beyond emotional and spirit. Our intellect allow us to understand God as he or she really is. And if you think about it, wasn't that part of Jesus' mission on this planet, showing us a better idea of God, contrary to the idea that humanity used to have until that time? An idea of a God of unconditional love, mercy, and justice instead of a cruel and vengeful God. This better understanding of God leads us to what Allan Kardec used to call a reasoned faith. What is the opposite of the blind faith? When we when our faith is based on reason, when we understand God, of course, up to the limits of our capability, our capacity, I'm sorry, when we have a more precise idea of what God really represents, we are able to strengthen our faith, to develop a faith that that goes beyond wishing and believing, a faith that allows us to accept God's purpose because we start to understand God's purpose to us. So, by comprehending the law of God as it really is, we become more able to follow this law. And the second resource is finding sense in this law, right? Because if we don't find sense in a law, we may follow this law because we have no other choice, right? So, uh, how can we spontaneously follow a rule, a law, when it doesn't make sense to us, right? Talking about the human laws, as I said, we may follow some laws that we don't understand. They don't make sense to us, but we don't have a choice. We follow them because if we don't follow them, we you have to face the legal consequence of it. But if we had the chance to act different, we would probably do so, right? Let's think of an example of this. Let's think of someone who is now 20 years old and does not agree with the minimal age to drink alcohol being 21. So if this person travels to a country where the minimal age to drink alcohol is 18, do you think they will still refrain from drinking, or they will take the opportunity to drink? I believe they will drink, right? Because the law that limit the age, it's not something that makes any sense to this person, right? If they understand the point of avoiding alcohol before a certain age, where their brain development is not complete yet, regardless of where they are, they will still follow the rule. That's the point of finding sense in the law of God. Most of laws that we understand as law of God, because we find them in the Bible, we don't even understand them. They don't even make sense to us. But we keep following them because we are afraid of facing the consequence. There will be a time when we will understand these laws. These laws will make sense to us. And then it won't be a matter of following a law. It will be a matter of acting naturally according to this law without making any effort to follow this law, right? So that's the point of this. These are the two most important reasons to live, to act according to the law of God, and then to find happiness, as the question in the Spirit's book says. Okay, so the moral laws. As we said, law of society is one of the moral laws. I'm so sorry in advance if you can hear my cat meowing here. She's right here by my side and she's asking for food, although there's food in his feeder. So there's nothing I can do now. So also for those who may be in touch with Spiritism for the first time, for those who may be even less acquainted with Spiritism than me, I listed again the 10 moral laws that we can find in the part 3 of the Spirit's book, which are law of worship, law of labor, law of reproduction, law of preservation, law of destruction, the law of society, the law of progress, the law of equality, the law of freedom, and the law of justice, love, and charity. Daniel once suggested that we could maybe develop a series of talks only about all the 10 laws, the 10 moral laws. Maybe we can discuss this among us uh, speakers here at SSB. I think it'd be interesting. But okay, so law of society is a divine or natural law. When we say divine law, natural law, or moral law, we are also talking about the law of God, right? And how do we know that the laws of society is one of these laws? Because it is written on the question 766 of the Spirit's book, when Kardec asked, "Is societal life natural?" And the answer was certainly. God has made humans for living in society. Otherwise, it would have been needless for God to have endowed them with speech and all the other faculties necessary for a life of relationship. We understand that never that God does, did, and will do is useless, right? Everything has a purpose. God is perfect, right? It's one of his or her attributes. So, why would God made us capable, able to speak, for example, if it was not for us to use our capacity of speaking, right? So, this is one of the signs that it is God's expectation that we live in society. According to Spiritism, living in society is not just a human choice, but it's part of God's design for us, God's expectation for all of us. The social environment is seen as essential for moral and intellectual development. And the abilities we have, such as speech, for instance, were given for us to help relate to one another. Uh, Also about society being a divine law. One question 768. In seeking societal living, do people only obey a personal sentiment or is there a wider providential purpose involved? And the answer was humans must progress. They cannot do so alone. However, since they do not all possess every faculty, they need contact with others. In isolation, they become boorish and withered. And here a comment by Allan Kardec about this question. Sorry, guys. No single individual possesses the complete range of faculties. It is through societal union that individuals complete one another in order to ensure their own welfare and progress. It is because they need one another that they have been created to live in society and not in isolation. A comment by Allan Kardec. So, uh, society is more than a convenience created by the man, right? It's a necessary framework for growth, evolution, and progress. Because our individual limitations make this interaction with others indispensable. By sharing our talents, our knowledge, and our support, we help each other to progress in ways that it wouldn't be possible living in isolation. Society then uh, is both a natural human condition that we created, but also a divine mean for achieving advancement and evolution. It's like when we are creating by God, let's think of a brand new and empty hard disk for a computer, right? Until this hard disk is filled with information, with files, and we can create folders, it's just an empty hard disk. And most of this information that we can fill in this hard disk, we acquire from this coexistence with others. These are not information that we can acquire by ourselves. Here I listed some consequences or advantages of living in society, and I tried to gather them in categories. The first category is learning through experience, like relationships based on reincarnation. First of all, we are spirits. Uh, we believe in reincarnation, right? There is no way to discuss spiritism without taking into consideration reincarnation. This is basic. This is one of the most basic principles of the doctrine of the spirits. And this doctrine teaches us that many of our relationships in society are not random, but are determined by our previous lives. I'm not talking about our family relationships. I'm talking about our social relationships. These are interactions that help us to address unfinished business, to balance out past mistakes, and to learn important lessons that guide us toward spiritual maturity. Let's think of an example here. Let's imagine that Daniel and Leo, who are now great friends, uh, they uh, they used to have any connection in one of the previous lives, and they have some accounts to resolve, and it was part of their reincarnation plan that they would meet and they would work together in a spiritual center, a spiritist center, in order to multiply the benefits of the doctrine of the spirits. Let's imagine that at some point of Leo or Daniel's life, before they met, they decided that one of them decided that, you know what, I don't want to live in society anymore. I want to live in a farm, far from everyone. I want to live in peace. And yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So they would have refrained themselves from meat, and they would have wasted the opportunity to be together in this life and to develop this necessity of this solving of questions regarding their previous lives, right? So that's what happened with most of our relationships. Of course, that some of our relationships are set randomly, but sometimes we think of a difficult neighbor or difficult coworker or difficult family member who we have to deal with. And this is maybe something that it's related to some past life. It's something that relate with our relationships set by reincarnation. Trial and error. Well, life in society can offer us in numerous opportunities to learn through experience, including successes and failures. Because our comprehension of success of failure has a different perspective when we have to coexist with other people. Because sometimes our success of failure is based on our own expectations, right? But when there's someone else involved, it comes to a different perspective. So we learn to develop some virtues like humility. Uh, we learn to avoid vanity, for instance, when we understand that failures are part of our existence. And if we were living by ourselves, this wouldn't have the same value that it has by sharing our experiences with our brothers and sisters. It's like when you set a goal, for instance, oh, you know what, I think that I need to waste some weight, and until the end of the year, I set this goal. In the end of the year, I don't reach my goal, and it's fine because I didn't share with anyone, right? It's different from a situation when uh, everybody knows about what's happening around you, right? So it's a different perspective. So that's why living in society is always important to help us developing these feelings, these sentiments related to successes and failures, and how we deal with this circumstance in our lives. Development of intelligence is like the example of the empty hard disk that I said before. And as Kardec says in his comment on the question 766 of the Spirit's book, uh, we don't come with all faculties. We need to be in touch with different skills, to be in touch with different points of view, with different levels of knowledge, of intelligence, so we can learn with these experiences, right? How can we must remember that also talking about the hard disk, we keep this hard disk along our different existences, our different reincarnations. All the skills, the faculties that I have learned in my previous lives, I have them now kept in my hard disk. But I'm not only using them now because I don't need them. I'm using what I need for this current experience, right? But we were created by God simple and ignorant, and we spend our existences gathering experience, skills, and intellectual growth, and etc. And we need others to share this knowledge with us. Otherwise, we would be limited to to learn things would act that would come from ourselves. If I don't have to lead with anyone, if I don't have anyone to teach me something, I would never learn anything because I wouldn't have this experience. That's why living in society is so important to develop our intelligence. And as we know, spiritual evolution has these two wings, the intellectual wing and the moral wing, one helping the other to develop most of the time in different incarnations, right? When I'm developing the intellectual wing, I am not developing the moral wing at the same amount, at the same measure. Development of moral virtues. Cooperation. Living in society teaches us the value of working together which fosters qualities such as cooperation, teamwork, and mutual respect. Only by interacting with others, we develop patience, tolerance, empathy, and compassion, which are key virtues for spiritual growth. How could we develop such virtues, acceptance, tolerance, empathy, if we didn't have to coexist with other people, especially with those who are different from us, right? Uh, no, we need to, if we didn't have a complicated partner living together, a complicated co-worker, our children, we wouldn't be able to develop such virtues. It's like when we ask God to, oh God, give me patience. It's not like God will make you wake up in the next day more patient than you went to bed. No, God will show you situations to go through in which you can develop patience. Yeah, but most of the time that's not the way we think. We want God to send us some pill that we can take and everything could be different, but it's not. Charity and altruism. Spiritism also emphasizes that true moral evolution is not just about individual progress, but also about helping others to progress. And by practicing charity and altruism in society, we cultivate love and selflessness, traits that are aligned with our journey to elevation and progress. There will be a time talking about what Jesus mentioned about universal family. There will be a time in the future when our happiness will depend on the happiness of others that are walking with us. Until there, we can be happy and ignore others' necessities, other needs. But there will be a time when we won't be able to be happy, to feel happy, while there is someone unhappy by our sides. So helping others to progress as you are progressing is the only meaning of the true evolution. So we cannot ignore uh, needs and necessities of others to progress with us. And if we didn't have the chance to coexist with people in different situations of us, in different material circumstances of us, not only material, but sometimes moral circumstances as well, because we know that talking is also a proof of charity, right? We can help our brothers and sisters by uh, listening, talking, and this is also a proof of charity. So there will be a time when we will understand that when Jesus said, it doesn't make any difference who is my mother, my brother, my sister, because everybody is part of the same universal family, and everybody's happiness counts on my happiness as well. Testing ground for virtue. So these social interactions often bring us challenges, misunderstandings, and conflicts. Any coincidence with the current panorama in the world is not not random. And these conflicts represent resource to develop forgiveness, humility, and understanding, which foster our moral evolution. So we must remember then one of the ways in our current evolutionary stage, the most functional way for us to evolve is suffering, is going through difficulties, unfortunately, because we are not yet ready to evolve only by loving and working, which would be the ideal scenario, right? But we still need to suffer to evolve. So it's very easy to find resource for suffering for difficulties living in society, right? So that's why it's a good testing ground for our virtues. Personal accountability and responsibility. Living in society, we must be held accountable for our actions, whether in legal, ethical, or personal context. Evolution implies acknowledging our mistakes before we are able to repair them. It's like there are some different stages, right? Acknowledge, regret, and then we are able to repair. So, Spiritism views consider accountability as a key element of spiritual growth. And by living in society, we learn to take responsibility for our actions, not only in this, but across multiple lifetimes. Maybe we are not being accountable spontaneously, right? Maybe we are being invited by justice, by legal control to this accountability. But imagine if we were living by ourselves without having to coexisting with others, without having someone controlling our acts. So maybe we wouldn't be accountable for the consequences of this act, and we wouldn't be able to evolve and to progress. Evolution of free will. Well, by living under the rules of society and suffering the consequences of our bad choice, we learn to apply better choices to our acts, and this helps us to develop our free will. We begin doing the right thing to avoid the consequences of the wrong things. And then at some point in the future, we will be doing the right thing because we understand its importance. and and there will be no other way that we could act but not like doing the right thing. It's what I did in the beginning. We will be doing the right thing in a more natural way because we must admit that okay, many things that we avoid doing right now, we don't do because we want it, but because we know the consequences, right? Oh, if I could, if there was no consequence, maybe I will do that way, right? But I don't. I am also in a better point that I used to be in the past, in past lives, right? When I did, regardless of the consequences. Now I don't do it anymore, but because I want to avoid the consequence. There will be a point in the future that there will be no other way that I would act. I would act in that way because I will understand. And this will be a consequence of the evolution of my free will. Uh, there's no other way that we can evolve. There's no other way that our merit can be measured if not by the way we make use of our free will. If I make good use or bad use of our free will. Because most of the times we have two choices. That's like the picture here. We have two ways, two ways to follow. And we can use our free will to decide which way we are following. Yeah. So, and that's how our merit is going to be measured. That's how I am going or not going to be in peace with my conscience in the future. And I will feel saved or I will feel condemned in the spiritual plane. Talking about in a different way to mention this, uh, we know that we are not condemned to go to hell in the definite way, but talking about our conscience judging us in the future in the spiritual way, that how it's going to happen. How what was the use that we have made of our free will, a good use or a bad use? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about isolation because the Spirit's book not only brings the importance of living in society, but it also talks a little bit about the implications of isolation. On question 767 of the Spirit's book, Kardec asked this question: is absolute isolation contrary to the law of nature? And their answer was yes, because because people instinctively seek societal living and because all of them must cooperate in humankind's progress by mutually helping one another. So we saw on the previous slides that cooperation is a condition for progress, and that progress cannot be only individual, right? We must seek and contribute to the progress of others in order to achieve a collective evolution. Um, we also know that this is not our first incarnation. We have incarnated before. We will reincarnate so many times in the future, right? So let's imagine that we are wasting this opportunity. We know already that living isolated may not be part of our reincarnation plan because we need to evolve, we need to coexist with other people, right? But let's say that, you know what? Okay, but I know that God will give me some other opportunities in the future. So now I will isolate myself. Next life, I will have the opportunity again to coexist with everybody. We know that the circumstances won't be the same, right? We know that people that should be coexisting with us now are living their lives, and circumstances will be different in the future. So it's very likely that we will have to come in much more difficult conditions and much more difficult, sorry, in much more difficult circumstances in the future regarding our capacity of coexistence, right? So why wasting a whole incarnation living isolated when we know that coexisting, living in society is fundamental, is a condition for our evolutional progress. Question 770. What is to be thought of those who live in absolute seclusion in order to escape the pernicious contact of the world? Haven't you ever know anyone, met anyone that said, no, 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 I don't want to go to the, I want to be here in my farm. I don't want to deal with people. I prefer to deal with my animals. No, it's complicated. No, I used to live in the city. I have some neighbors that oh so complicated to deal with. I don't want this anymore. I prefer to be here. So the question is what to think about people that, okay, I don't want to be in touch with um, some difficulties. I know that my patient is not very good, that if I have to deal with them, I would end up doing bad things. So let's avoid these bad things so I can preserve myself. And the answer is doubly selfish. The second part, but if such seclusion has expiation as its purpose through the imposition of harsh privations, isn't it meritorious? Doing mostly good rather than evil is the best expiation. Through such seclusion, they avoid one evil only to fall into another, since they neglect the law of love and charity. Because we know that progressing, evolving, it's not only about not doing the bad, not doing evil. It's about mostly and especially about doing the good, expressing love, expressing charity, and altruism, right? As we said. So, we cannot use this excuse, right? You know, I'm avoiding hurt someone. I know myself. Uh, in order to avoid harming someone, hurting someone, I prefer to be isolated. No, that's not the way. You should treat yourself. You should identify the traits of your personality that would be harmful, and you should fight against them. That's the only choice we have. Still about isolation. Question 771. What should we think of those who renounce the world in order to devote themselves to the relief of the unfortunate? Oh, here it sounds a little bit difficult, right? The answer was they evolve by putting others' needs before their own. They have the double merit of placing themselves above material pleasures and of doing good by fulfilling the law of labor. And nowadays, maybe we don't know many examples as in the past, but we know so many historical examples of people that renounced their own lives to take care of others, right? I think that one of the most important that we can think about is Madre Teresa from Calcutta in India, but there are so many other people that sacrifice their own lives. So in that case, it's different. That isolation, which is not exactly an isolation because they are dealing with people, but they are not living their lives the way that most of the people do. They have decided to renounce their right to have their family, the job of their dreams, their own children, just to take care of other people. And as they say, this is a double merit. The second part of the question. And those who withdraw to seek the tranquility required for certain kinds of labor. That is not the absolute withdrawal of the selfish individual. They do not isolate themselves from society because they labor for it. So we can think of some examples here, like astronauts who have to go to pass 6 months, 3 months, 4 months in space, right, away from their family, dealing with 3 or 4 people most. It's a kind of isolation. Well, they are doing this in in favor of the development of science, right? Researching. Maybe someone has to be more concentrated in a laboratory searching about the cure of some disease, of some vaccine. So this is something that it's some kind of renounce as well, right? They are renouncing their right to be interacting with their family, and doing so they are dedicating their time uh, for the development of science. So, my dear friends, living according to the chapter 17, Be Perfect, of the Gospel according to Spiritism, item 10, the individual in the world, living in society is an imperative. Man is condemned to live socially. And that is what we find in the middle of this item 10. Therefore, do not think that incessantly exhorting you to prayer and mental evocation, we wish to advise you to live a mystic life that keeps you outside the laws of the society in which you have been condemned to live. No, live with the men and women of your time in the way that men and women should live. Observe the social necessities, even the frivolities of the day, but do it with a sentiment of purity which may sanctify them. So we are not avoid to avoid the circumstances of the world. This may remind me some religion, some doctrine, I don't remember right now, but that has this expression. Oh, don't do it this because this is from the world. Do this because this is from Jesus. And they separate things that are from the world. That's the expression they use, from the world. This is from the word. This is like listen to some kind of music. This is from the word, right? And this is from Jesus. So we are not expected to avoid the circumstances of the world. We are in the world right now, 2025. Oh my God, 2025, living here or wherever you are living right now. So we have to deal with the circumstances around us, but we have to be able to judge their circumstances. Judge for us, not for others. Judge if the circumstances are convenient or not for us. This is part of the development of our free will, right? How can I be able to decide if this is something good or bad to me if I'm not in touch with this, right? What is my merit? Let's think of someone who suffers from alcoholism. Let's imagine that this person spent 1 year without drinking alcohol because they didn't have access to alcohol. Can we say that their merit is the same of someone who also suffers from alcoholism and also spent 1 year without drinking alcohol despite being in touch with alcohol every day? No, it's not. The merit is different because was in touch. It's like our temptation, right? We are temptation according to our weaknesses, right? So we need to be in touch. We need to put our weaknesses improve. We need to decide what is good or bad to us. That's the development of our free will, right? So we need to be in the Word. That's know how to avoid it. Well, here are some statements about living in society. Life is a great achievement of human solidarity. It's in the book The Martyrdom of the Suicides by Almeida Castro. Life on earth is a school, a path of learning and spiritual growth through labor, study, and the trials of suffering, uh, by Leon Denis in the book After Death. The world, however harsh it may be, will one day be seen by our spirit as the school of perfection, whose corrective instruments we shall bless. The companions who share this journey with us, no matter how ungrateful or indifferent, are our opportunities to put good into practice, resources for our improvement and redemption. If wisely embraced through our own effort, they can transform us into heroes. This is said by Walter Barcelos in the book Sex and Evolution. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about family, the first society. How is our family the first model of society that we know, that we have access to? Well, as much as some of us, we have the choice to live in or outside society, right? I can say, you know what, I am buying an estate in a very far land or country, and I will live there. I don't know, I don't want to see anyone anymore. I want to be there by myself and my animals and my plants, and that's it. We are not able to make this choice regarding our family, at least not until we are able to live by ourselves, until we are able to provide the material, the means for our material existence, right? So, at least in our first years of existence of life, we will have to live within a family society. We will have to learn with the model of people who live around us, and we'll be able to develop the ability to judge if this is a good model or a bad model, right? But that's why it's so important. The the role of a parent is so important because you are shaping the trails of personality of your children, and most part of them are a copy of your own traits, right? They copy your model, right? Until they realize that, you know what, when it happens, because sometimes we think that we are doing bad, but we think that we are doing good. But sometimes we, you know what, yeah, I was taught by my parents, but this is not the good way. That was the teaching that they were able to give me, but I know it was not a good teaching. So now I'm able to go in a different way. So family is the environment where we learn to, where we heard and we get heard, where we teach and we are taught, where we help and we are helped, where we forgive and where we are forgiven, right? So family is the first model of society that we have access to. It's the first place where we learn to coexist as a son, as a sibling, anyway, right? So that's how family is so important as the first opportunity for us to live in society. Um, and here's the question 775 of the Spirit's book, when Kardec asked, what would be the result for society if family ties were relaxed? The answer was a magnification of selfishness. On the book Jesus in the Home by Chico Xavier in the Spirit Neo Lúcio, chapter 1, it is said, the home is the first school and temple of the soul. The home is the true exporter of individuals for community life. World peace begins under the roof that shelters us. If we can't learn to live in peace within four walls, how can nations expect to coexist in harmony? If we can't love the brother or sister right next to us, and who is involved with us in our daily struggle, how can we revere to the eternal Father who seems so far away, right? And on the book Family Constellation by Divaldo Franco and the spirit of Joanna de Angelis, family is the fundamental foundation upon which the immense structure of society is built. In the small domestic group, the experience of universal brotherhood begins, rehearsing the steps for noble commitments in favor of building a balanced society. In all forms of life, there is this divine energy, which in humans manifests as consciousness, discernment, reason, love, and wisdom. Within the family, this noble sentiment finds fertile ground to develop, bringing joy to the fragile beings who are beginning their journey, as well as to those who provide them with security. Right? So uh, we cannot avoid family, living in family. We are one. If we are not, I think we are not the. I'm sorry. The ones who are good in science. I'm quite sure we are not the only one, but we are beings that we cannot survive with assistance, right? I know that maybe there may be some other animals that need assistance to survive, but we wouldn't be able, right? This fairy tale of the, I don't know, Tarzan. I don't know if it could be true for some reason, because we would need someone taking care of us, providing us the minimum to survive, right? So we don't have the choice to avoid living in family. Least but not last, let's talk a little bit about how challenging it has been living in society nowadays. I don't know, you think it's been challenging? Maybe not, but I believe that most of us may understand that, yeah, living in society is now very complicated. We know that tolerance and acceptance of differences have always been conditions for a good coexistence, right? But it looks like nowadays the polarization of ideas and points of views has reached to a critical level that has made coexistence in society even more challenging. Sometimes it's like we would like to lock ourselves in bubbles. Uh, we would find only people that think alike us, right? Avoiding to deal with people that stand for a different point of view. We may think, you know what? No, I don't want to argue anymore. I don't want to convince anyone that their way of thinking is wrong. It's because we know that we think that our way of thinking is always right, right? So I don't want to convince anyone that the way they think is absurd. I prefer to deal exclusively with those who think like me. And then we end up building this imaginary wall that sometimes separates family members and people that used to be good friends and turn them into enemies, into fighters, trying to constantly prove themselves right. It's like there's no more time for a good conversation. If you don't agree with me, I don't like you. I don't wanna, I don't even wanna listen to you. Uh, I don't want you anymore around me. I don't want you in my social media. I don't want to follow you anymore. I won't be able to see any other aspect of your existence rather than this point of disagreement between us. This will be the most important thing about you from now on. So there's no more room for tolerance and acceptance. And the problem about that is we think that our truth is the real truth. The truth that we stand for is absolute. And none of us is still able to have access to the absolute truth. This is something that I don't know if the most evolved spirits are able to. They have access to a better truth than the truth we have access now. Right? But in our actual current evolutional stage, we cannot say that we have access to the absolute truth. Right? So we may take into consideration that if the truth that we stand for is the better one, comparing to our brothers and sisters, uh, it may have taken a while for us to get here, right? And we may have been standing for many misconceptions in the past. And what I want to say with that is that it takes time. We need time. Our brothers and sisters need time. And if God respects this time, why aren't we able to do the same? Why do you demand that everybody thinks the way we think? Right? There is this writer, Francis Bacon, who says that truth is daughter of time, not of authority, which means that we cannot impose our truth on anyone. We must respect others' beliefs, even if they sound to us clearly against of the law of God or even against to a minimal level of common sense. Because Jesus taught us the truth, but he didn't impose the truth on us. Because Jesus knew that the truth must serve to set one free, not to scandalize or to suppress. So, as we still need tolerance and acceptance from others regarding so different aspects of our personality, we must be tolerant with others too. Isn't that what Jesus taught us? Uh, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. So this is why also why living in society is fundamental. This is something that we would not be able to develop this tolerance, this acceptance, if we wouldn't have to deal to coexist in society. Because by living isolated, we would only have access to our own perspective, which sometimes or most of the time may not be the better one. So living together is not easy most of the times, but it's a condition. It is a condition to evolve. If we didn't know that, now we know, and I hope that this can help us to be more tolerant, more patient, more understanding uh, about about the different way that our neighbor, our brothers and sisters think. And with this beautiful image that I captured myself from the these waterfalls in the Minnehaha Regional Park here in the state of Minnesota, I thank you all again. And yeah, and I'm open to the questions now if you have some.
Jeanette, can you turn the light? Technical difficulties here. Um, Hearing myself. So just give me 1 second. As I speak, I'm gonna mute you, and then I'll unmute you when you speak. Wendell, thank you so much for this beautiful talk and this reminder about the law of society and how important it is. Right? We touched on several. You touched on several aspects of it, including the difficulties that we have nowadays. Right? To live in society and to connect with one another. Um, you're making us jealous. Not only with the beautiful picture that you show, everybody will be going now to go to that waterfall, And we already have some requests here. It doesn't have to be now, but we you also have to show our the little friend as well who was meowing in the background, which is okay. We don't want to make you feel bad or anything, but that will come. But again, thank you for bringing this topic. Look, going back to what you said at the beginning, it's a matter of us, pulling together and talking about the natural laws. So since you've reminded us of the idea, guess what? You'll be you will be on the roster as well to speak about it. So not the law society, because you already spoke about it. It will be something else, right? So, but thank you for that. We do have some questions and some comments that we would like to bring in, and I'll open up for the group here. For those who would like to speak and ask a question, I would ask you to come to the front and say in front of the computer here so that Wendell can speak, or I can actually repeat it for him. But I'll ask Daniel to share the first question um, online, and then um, we'll go over here. So, is it possible to achieve true self realization or personal growth in the absence of societal environment and challenges? Or does such a choice ultimately lead to a profound and debilitating form of stagnation? And you go ahead and mute yourself.
Oh, thank you for the question, Spiritism USA. Well, I would say that based on all we saw, based on what these answers to Kardec questions and the Spirit's book, yeah, I think that would not be possible to achieve true self-realization, because not only because we know that our self-realization depends on how we set uh, things from the past with our brothers and sisters who are walking along with us in this reincarnation, and then it will be necessary for us to be close to them, at least, but also because we need to learn, we need to acquire new skills, uh, um, a new parcel of knowledge, right? So, and we saw that it's not possible to to achieve this by ourselves. And not only talking about the intellectual aspect, but we would also need to be in touch with different feelings and emotions that we have, the virtues that we have not developed yet. And we need examples to develop these emotions. And I think that self-realization can be very related to the development of these virtues and these emotions, that virtues that we don't even know that we need, right? And it's necessary a work of self-knowledge. Of course, we need to look inside ourselves and look for the virtues that we haven't developed yet, because they are there. They are craved by God since when he or she created us. But we don't even know yet what we need to develop that we haven't developed yet. But I think that this feeling of self-realization, and it's related to the development of these virtues. We may not know now what we may not remember now what we need to develop as part of our reincarnation plan, but deep in our consciousness we know, we remember. Maybe during the episodes of emancipation of our soul, we can revisit these points that were bullet in our reincarnation plan. So this is something that it's our self achievement. I think it's related to these virtues that we need to develop, and then most of the time they are not possible to develop by ourselves. We need to be in touch with someone else.
Thank you, Wendell. It's interesting that as you were speaking with the question and your answer as well, we recently covered the parable of the wedding feast, and one of the aspects, the teachings that we get from the parable, It is actually Jesus partaking in a in an event that was still is right. A wedding is something big for many of us. It's a moment of our couple's life that they're making um, um, constructing something new and tying the knots and so on and so forth. But the teaching is that we have to be in society. We have to partake in the elements of the physical life, right? And share with one another what's the best that we can provide them, right? So I think that as you were speaking, this just came to mind because we think that when we realize that we can do better things with life, we think that we have to live a secluded life or that I shouldn't participate of this or that anymore. But we have to live in society, and that I think that is goes along with what you said to receive the best of others because we can always learn one thing or another from others, but also give the best of us, right? So thank you for that. Anyone here would like to ask a question? Paula, come, please. Right? Wendell would like to hear from you.
You're leaving me alone with this machine.
Go ahead. You're fine. It's all set for you.
Right height?
Just
I
make
don't know.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, hi. Thanks for your very helpful talk, and I appreciated all the resources. And it was so brave of you to finish up on the topic that you did. But we all need to understand it. I am still reflecting on the word conscience because when I observe other people, I see people with not enough conscience. They're just acting out and doing things. And sometimes I see people with too much conscience. They're easily guilt ridden and they get constricted. So I just wondered if we could speak about conscience a little more. I can always come up.
Go ahead, Wendell.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Miss Paula, for your question. I think the topic about consciousness, I think consciousness is something that while we are here in the material plane, or maybe as soon as we return to the spiritual plane, is we have developed this mechanism of disguising our consciousness. So I believe that blessed are those who can already feel guilt, not that they have to feel guilt for everything and they have to blame themselves for everything. But when we do something wrong to someone, when we act rude with someone and we immediately feel bad about it, oh my goodness, I feel so ashamed of that, so embarrassed of that. And I think that this is our consciousness talking to us, right? And we won't be in peace until we say that we are sorry. We try to compensate this person for that. But most of the time, so I think this is a blessing already when we have achieved this point. Okay, because most of us, we don't even realize, we don't even notice when we do something bad, unless this person tell us, you shouldn't talk that way. You didn't see that you hurt me. Unless they take this position, we even realize this most of the time, right? And so when we don't realize that we act bad, how can we fix it? Not only to others, but for ourselves. How can we fix this behavior as something that I cannot act like this anymore? So unfortunately, I think that in order to feel comfortable, we are able to disguise our consciousness here in the material plane. And that's the danger, because when we are back to the spiritual plane, when we pass that period of realizing that, okay, I died, but I'm still alive. So those who said that life goes on, maybe they were right, something's happening. And then after passing this period of, okay, so yeah, now I recognize myself as a spirit. And then my consciousness will take in some authority over me, and it will get to the point that, okay, now it's our time. Now let's have that chat. Now we need to talk, right? And it's like we cannot avoid it for forever. I can avoid now thinking about something that I did. I mistreated Leo yesterday, but I don't care. He will forget that at some point. But I won't be able to do this forever. And so if we develop this capacity of, you know, talking to our consciousness every day through this self-analysis that Saint Augustine told us to do. I think it's question 719 or 18. I don't know, in the Spirit's book. We need to develop this ability to talk to our consciousness so we can develop a better relationship with it, so we are not going to be oppressed by it in the future, embarrassed and, oh, now you see, because that's our idea of the judgment of God. When we say God doesn't condemn us, but God doesn't even doesn't oh, doesn't either forgive us. What God wants from us, that we reach this stage of being in peace with our consciousness. So our consciousness will be our judge. So we need to start developing this relationship with it. So paying attention in what we are doing. So maybe, Miss Paula, that's the reason why some people seems to have a more activated consciousness, and some people seems to deal better with their conscience and don't even remember that they have one, right? Because we are able to disguise our conscience, and in order to live comfortable, in order to don't have to be embarrassed about our actions every day. What is very dangerous, as I said, we need to start paying attention in this so it won't be worse in the future.
Thank you, Wendell. If we can go ahead and move on to the next question online. And Daniel asks, what role does the law of society play in balancing individual freedom with collective responsibility in the Spiritist perspective?
Thank you, Daniel, for your question. Well, I believe that the statement that I brought about Jesus saying that don't do to others what you don't expect them to do to you, right? My right ends where your right starts. So if we are neighbors, we have to respect each other's. So that's the way to balance individual freedom. There's no individual freedom if my individual freedom transpass the limit of yours. So I think that we should put ourselves, that's about empathy. We should put ourselves, we should to walk in others' shoes and try to imagine how they would feel in that situation. And that is urgent because we are living in a very competitive world, professionally speaking, and we have to succeed financially and materially speaking, and we don't care about others' feelings, right? So I think that putting ourselves in others' situation and starting to imagine how we would be feeling, maybe not how we would be feeling, because sometimes, okay, I wouldn't care. I try to put myself in Leo's situation where I don't understand why he was so uh, offended by me, because I wouldn't be offended. Okay, don't use only yourself as a measure, right? Try to use a more common sense. Try uh, to bring a more a different measurement, right? Because maybe most of the people are not like you, and this doesn't mean that you are the best model to follow, right? So yeah, I think that's the thing about balancing living in society and respecting our individual freedom is respecting the limits. Yeah, my freedom ends when yours is supposed to start.
Thank you, Wendell. And we also have a comment question by Miss Abby. I'll ask Daniel. Thank you. And she says, "Thank you very much for this wonderful talk. My question is, it's very challenging to be tolerant and watch while they are clearly hurting others' thoughts."
Thank you, Abby. Yes, it is really challenging. But we are not supposed to close our eyes and pretend that there's nothing wrong happening. We are not supposed to see something really absurd happening and doing nothing. We have to act. God expects us from us that we act. That's also doing the good, right? Avoiding the evil. But what we could do is try to remember that we may be different from this person now in this specific aspect, but maybe in some different aspects they are better than us. I don't know, right? And besides, we must remember that this is our best version today. But yesterday, I may not been like this. I may have not been like this. I was, I displayed a worse version of myself. And it's about time. Everybody has their time, and we have to respect their time. Because if Jesus, if God, or even if our protector spirit uh, didn't have tolerance about our time, what would happen to us, right? And so we have, at some point, we have to target in the best models, which for us, the best model is Jesus. So let's try to think, okay, what would Jesus do in this situation if he was seeing this person doing this thing? I know it's challenging. It's really challenging. I like to make it clear that I am in this category of people that sometimes think, oh my goodness, I have to deal with people again. I have to live in society. It's not easy. But I'm also one of the destinations of this talk, and we have to think that, yeah, let's think that we are here for a reason, because that can be an argument as well for some people. Oh, why am I here? I throw stones in the cross. I spoil the food in the Last Supper. No, we are here for a reason. We are here to learn, to repair, to evolve. There is a reason why we're here. So let's just, it's not that we are now pretending that everything is fine, that we have to be, oh, I have to agree with that. No, we have to stand up for our rights, for our point of view, but we need to find some balance and understand why they don't think like us. And there's a reason why they're here as well. A reason for us, including. So yeah, maybe I know a bit it can be very challenging, but yeah, I don't know. Thinking and praying and asking for inspiration for your spiritual guardian and say, oh, maybe say a prayer for this person, for their improvement. Let's think like this.
Thank you, Wendell. Any final comments from here? I think, Daniel, we can put the last one, I believe, that I made there, uh, the second one. Yes. And how can we help family members or friends who choose to live in seclusion?
Yeah, that's difficult, Leo. I think it's easier for me now speak to all of you in a general way, in a generic way. Yeah, if you see some of your family members or specific friend living in seclusion, and you can see that they are refraining themselves from developing, they are preventing themselves from developing virtues that you realize that are only possible to develop by living in society. Maybe you could, because let's imagine that they are really nice there. Oh no, Leo, I'm okay here. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm really comfortable. I do the best I can. I help some institutions, remotely. I don't know. You have to see if you have this opportunity, this intimacy, an opportunity to, and if they are open to listen, because if they are not, what's the purpose of that, right? But if you think you can find a way to get to them and convince them, maybe talk about the importance of living in society in order to evolve. If they believe that we are evolving, that progress is a moral law as well, if they believe that they will be here after death, because if not, what's the point? So I don't know, maybe we should identify in the specific situation what are the chances to be helpful in our approach, because if we won't be helpful, there's no use for it. So, but I think that a good way is showing the benefits of living in society, and in taking into consideration the purpose of progressing, evolving, and then you can analyze if for them it is important thing or not.
Thank you once more, Wendell. This is so important for all of us because we are here, we are in society, right? Perhaps we're speaking from a different state, online, but these are the moments that we learn from one another. We learn from your talk not only what you said, but the way you present it as well, right? The way we project ourselves towards one another. So that is an amazing thing, and I think that um, the speech, and then all the other elements that we utilize to connect with one another is extremely important. And then for that, we are thankful for your time as well, for your decision to help and continue in this path of speaking about spiritism and taking this to the masses as well, right? Small masses, right? But hopefully one day we'll be able to remind one another, who we truly are, eternal beings. We would like to invite you to say the final prayer. We're very happy that you already gave the next steps, right? Let's talk about the natural laws, but more to come on that. It's going to be a little bit of a longer, more than an hour, right? But for today, let us just ask you to say the final prayer, and so we can bid ourselves very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity. Well, dear friends, let's talk to our dear friend Jesus, our master, but our friend who looks at us as his younger friends, youngest brothers and sisters, and feel happy when we decide to take the right step in order to follow his model and example, and feel sad when he knows that we are making a bad use of our free will, causing us circumstances that could have been avoided if we had chosen the right way. But most especially, always respecting our condition of spiritism in evolution, without demanding from us a time and an hour for us to change. Let's thank Jesus for this opportunity to dedicate this time of our week to reflect about his teachings that were explained by the doctrine of the spirits, the promised consoler that was effectively sent by him to help us to know the truth and then open our eyes to use the truth as a motivation to identify the inferior traits of our personality, fight against them, and make room for the virtues that were graved by God in all of us when He created us, spirits simple and ignorant. Thank you, Jesus, for the existence of this institution where we can learn and express our love and gratitude. May we maybe gather later during the episode of Emancipation of Our Souls and gather with the good spirits to develop better these reflections in order to be even more able to apply them in our day-to-day lives, trying to be better and make the most of living in society, dealing with our brothers and sisters, those who make us happy and those who make us sad. May we understand, Jesus, that we are here because we need. We are here to help and be helped. And may we not forget our responsibilities and the role that God expects us to play as co-creator with them and executors of His providence. May you stay with us, dear Jesus. May we always feel your presence around us, directly or through the good spirits that you send to protect us and inspire us. Be always with us, and so be it.